everyone, it's Bethany from Beth and Books and welcome back to this book nook. We're gonna take it back to the era of YouTube where it was just a camera, a person and their bedroom. Excuse me. And the reality is I'm not even kidding, that's so heavy. So many books and I just want to share them with you. It's like 11:30 at night, maybe a bit later. Ty's up watching the footy. Wales vs Iran, I think, is on right now. And I want to read one of these books. Before I do that, I'm going to share it with you. So we're just going to sit back, relax, and let's get into this. I have 27 books here, and that's because I'm trying really hard to reach the 100 books goal. I've got this many left to read, and I have been in a massive reading slump lately, and I was like, you know what, whilst I have recently read 2 books, but like the month leading up to that I'd read nothing. I was like, you know what, December is going to be the month of short stories, poems and poetry collections and graphic novels. So what I have done here is separated everything into 6 piles, and let's just start with the pile that's right in front of me. This is the pile that I'm going to say Bookstagram influenced me. So I have seen all of these on Instagram in some way, shape or form. I'm also going to keep the summaries of these books as little as I can. If you're interested in seeing more of my reading thoughts and feelings about the books, make sure you stay tuned, subscribe to this channel, because I'm going to be posting vlogs like every other day throughout December for Vlogmas. So first book is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now this was on the longest side. I was trying to keep everything under 200 pages and this is almost 300, but I have just been wanting to read this for the longest time. It's one of those books that comes up on all the lists of what you should read before you die, as morbid as those lists are when you stop to think about it. It's one of those books that is always popping up. So this is a book about a boy called Arthur who's had a really bad day because Earth basically was bulldozed to make some sort of galaxy highway go through it. A new hyperspace express route, it says. However, our main character Arthur, with just a towel, a small yellow fish and a book, he has to navigate through like this new space, this new galaxy with like an alien gang. I also picked up Nikita Gill's Wild Embers, which is a poetry collection. If you know me a little bit, you'll know that I quite enjoy writing poetry and unfortunately have not made the time to do so recently. And I'm hoping that reading some poetry will re-inspire me. I'll just read the snippet off the back. It says, featuring rewritten fairy tale heroines, goddess wisdom and poetry that burns with revolution, this collection is an explosion of femininity, empowerment and personal growth. My lisp really gets me sometimes. I will say I'm enjoying that when I look through this, I'm not seeing many poems which are just like one word a page, which is good. Next up we have Riot Baby. This is all still my Bookstagram made me do it pal, by the way, by Tochi and is it Onya Butchie? Sorry, I really need to look up that name. And this is a short familial dystopian story which also has some sort of superhuman powers to it. Our 2 main characters are Ella and Kev. They are siblings. Ella has the ability to basically foresee the future and Kev is trying to protect her because this is a power which doesn't want to be advertised, let's put it that way. It is also a book about the Black experience, about racism, about, you know, the sibling having to come together and protect each other. However, what happens, Kev gets incarcerated and Ella has to decide what to do with this power she has that it says it could wreck cities. So I am intrigued. Now this one is Murakami's Men Without Women, and I'll be honest, I just picked up the shortest-ish Murakami book on the shelf that I saw that also sounded somewhat interesting. I have seen Murakami everywhere this year, all over Bookstagram, and I've just had mad FOMO on to read one of their books. This one in particular I picked up because it has 7 short stories in it, and so I'm thinking I can like read a short story and then pick up a different book or something like that to keep the pace going as I try hit 100 books. The reason I picked up this one is because of this line. Murakami brings his powers of observation to bear on the lives of men who, in their own ways, find them alone. Here are vanishing cats, smoky bars, lonely hats, mysterious women, baseball, and the Beatles. And it just sounds really fascinating, and I'm intrigued to see how all of these stories are woven together. So this is my Bookstagram made me do it pile. Move on to the biggest pile here, which is I looked things up online and read websites and articles that told me some good short stories. So I guess this is a researched pile of good books. First up, we have The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. If you're wondering why that name sounds familiar, he's the dude that wrote War and Peace, a book that I have constantly been wanting to read but never gotten around to because it is way too big. And so when I saw on a list that this was not only Leo Tolstoy, it was also a shorter book of his that's meant to be good, I had to pick it up. Sounds like an existential short story where Ivan was a judge. I'm assuming like a court judge, where he put his job, power, fame, before his own family, and then there's an accident which leaves him in a position where he can no longer keep doing what he was doing, and it's kind of like a reflection on what's important in life, what he could have done better, and what he is going to do now without all of the power and fame that he has kind of built up for himself. Next up, we have Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. Now, I will be completely honest with you. I read Toni Morrison at university and I didn't get it. I think, if I'm being honest with myself, I didn't get much of what I was reading at university. I was just purely reading it for the sake of getting through my degree. I really wish I had my YouTube channel back when I was like a university student. It would be so interesting to reminisce and look back on that experience, but no matter. This one is called The Bluest Eye, which in classic Morrison fashion is like a critique and a reflection of society. This one in particular about why black beauty is not seen as beautiful. And like, to be completely honest with you, there is not much here on the back of the book that tells me what it's about. Basically a bunch of newspapers and their accolades. But I picked this one up out of all of the Toni Morrison ones I could find because, and I mean in the list it was also saying that it's the winner of the 1993 Nobel Prize for Literature. So I was like, hey, it's short, it's meant to be good, let's read it. Now this one almost belongs in the other pile, which is, I picked them up because they're pretty. So pretty pickups. But that'd be a lie. I didn't know the cover was so pretty when I picked it up. This was from the list. So this is Tokyo Ueno Station by Yumiri, translated by Morgan Giles or Giles. Now just take a moment, look at this cover. Look at it, the pinks, yes. Now this book is fascinating to me after reading the blurb because it almost sounds biographical, but it's not. So basically Miri is Japanese Korean and they are talking with this outsider's perspective through the character of Kuzu. Let me check that. Kazu. Now Kazu started life in like 1933, so 1930s, and basically it follows their life through their ups and their downs. They talk about the tsunami that happened that really impacted them, and then the frustration that character felt when Tokyo got the Olympics, and it kind of sounds non-fiction, biographical, looking from a perspective of someone who is reminiscing and looking back on the failures of their country. Sounds quite intriguing, to be honest. Next is Danez Smith's poetry collection, Don't Call Us Dead. When I saw this on the list, I had to pick it up because I had also had this on my Goodreads want to read list for the longest time. I cannot remember who made me put it on here. I just remember it was like a YouTuber raving about it. And this is a poetry collection all about the Black experience. I was just like making sure I had this right because that was just off memory. But yeah, the Black experience. I mean, the very first poem is called, the second poem is called Dear White America. Then Dinosaurs in the Hood, and then It Won't Be a Bullet. There's not really any blurb anywhere that tells you like a summary about what this poetry book is about, but here are some excerpts. Don't Call Us Dead gives me a dose of hope at a time when such a thing feels hard to come by. Another one is, there is such intelligence and fervour in these poems about black men, their imperiled bodies, gay men and their impassioned bodies, what it means to be HIV positive, and so much more. I just realised if every book I talk for like a minute or less, this is still going to be a 27-minute video. So I'm going to keep whizzing through these. Sorry if I don't delve into things enough. This is called Assembly by Natasha Brown. First of all, another moment for the cover. Beautiful, stunning, Vogue slay. This is kind of like a psychological questioning one's own life path kind of book, which I've found has become a theme in a lot of these short books I'm picking up. It's a lot of contemporary reflection, psychological deepness thinking, woke kind of stuff. This is from a black British woman's perspective. I don't know if we've got a narrator's name. It just says the narrator. Basically, she's like going to attend her boyfriend's really lavish garden party. But when she's there, she kind of has this moment of realization of like, is this what my life has come to? Is this what life is all about? Is this what success is? And it's kind of exploring this idea of saying, screw it, selling everything you own and moving countries, but with less of a plan than I have, I suppose. Following that same trajectory, this is actually kind of hard to see, but it says Territory of Light by Yuki Tsushima, and this is following a woman who is newly divorced, has a daughter, moves to Tokyo all by herself, and it follows a year in her life as she is struggling to raise a child and questions everything she was, everything she is now, and everything she is to become. Next up we have Raina Maria Rilke, and the title is Letters to a Young Poet. Sorry, the sticker is in a really unfortunate place, library. And this is a collection of actual letters that Rilke wrote to a young officer cadet. Now, the letters were full of advice on love, sex, suffering, and the nature of advice. And this book contains those letters. I love it. I love the idea of this. Jhumpa Lahiri is an author I had heard about, and I picked up his novel called Whereabouts. What was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say there's this cover which is so beautiful and I feel like encapsulates the vibe of this book a lot better than this one does. Again, following the themes of the things we've just been talking about. It follows a woman. This book was also written in Italian first and then translated, so this is another translated book. But this is about a woman who kind of just goes where her feet takes her as she kind of contemplates her days and what she is observing, and she's kind of like a fly on the wall, and it's just a conversation about how people transform and change and like let go and do whatever things want them to do. I am in love with this cover. I don't quite know why, but I just do. It's something about just, here, throw a blob of green on it that I am intrigued by. Like, what does it mean? Or I am getting old when I cannot sit for 20 minutes with my knees crossed anymore without them aching. This one does sound a little bit more morose because it's talking about grief. Our main character is called Mira. She leaves home to study, and there she meets Annie, whose tremendous power opens Mira's chest like a portal. So I'm assuming there's some sort of female-female romance here, but it could also be platonic friendship. We don't know yet. But when Mira is older, her father dies, and she basically has to come to terms with what her life looks like without her father. The dizzying dimension that true loss opens up. And lastly, for this group of novels, we have Luster, a novel. This is about somebody called Eddie who is stumbling through her 20s. Yeah, feel you, queen. Sharing a subpar apartment in Bushwick, clocking in and out of her admin job, making a series of inappropriate sexual choices. It sounds really interesting because Eddie is the only black woman in this family that she then becomes a part of, and it's like looking at this tale of responsibility, how much is on white people to educate themselves about black people, whilst also having a bit of a romance in here, which is, I don't know, it just sounds really interesting. So that is the selection of books suggested to me when I did research. Now this is a pile of books that I picked up because of their pretty covers. First of all, we have The House on Mango Street. So this is a story told in vignettes, which absolutely enthralls me. Like that's each page, that's each chapter. I find that fascinating. Turn the page, boom, like what? So this is about the remarkable story of Esperanza Cordero, told in a series of vignettes, sometimes heartbreaking, sometimes joyous. It is the story of a young Latino girl growing up in Chicago, inventing for herself who she wants to be and who she will become. I need to keep it short. I need to keep it moving. I picked up another Murakami one. This one isn't... I suppose this one, looking at it, I possibly should have put with the other Murakami book. But I think I was more intrigued by this one because of the cover than anything, to be honest. Like, this is actually... You can actually put things in there. I might leave a secret note to whoever reads it after me. I also found it very intriguing because of how... aesthetic the inside was. Like, look at this. I don't know, I just love it. And on the back it says, all I did was go to the library and borrow some books, and honestly, I'm here for that. Next we have Bug Week. I think I've been really drawn to this baby pink at the moment. Now this is actually written by fellow Kiwi. Her name is Irene, born in Auckland, 1982. She's been a journalist. She's written texts which have been a part of anthologies. She's a collector, she's an author of 4 collections of poetry. It's basically very prolific. I found this in the special awards section. And just to read what this book is about, Bug Week is a scalpel clean examination of male entitlement, a dissection of death, an agar plate of mundanity. From 1960s Wellington to post-communist Germany, Bug Week traverses the weird, the wry, and the grotesque in a story collection of human taxonomy. Fascinated. Fascinated. Next up, Interior Chinatown. Now this one is a decent amount bigger than I was hoping to grab, 250-ish pages, but I was just so intrigued by this cover. So this is about Willis Wu, who doesn't perceive himself as like a protagonist. He sees himself as just an everyday Asian man. That's what it says in here. Don't get mad at me. Sometimes he gets to be a background oriental making a weird face or a disgraced son, but he is always relegated to a prop. Yet every day he leaves his tiny room in a Chinatown SRO and enters the Golden Palace restaurant, where Black and White, a procedural cop show, is in perpetual production. He's a bit of a player there. However, his mum always tells him to be more. Playful but heartfelt, a send-up of Hollywood's tropes and Asian stereotypes, this is Yu's most moving, daring and masterful novel yet. Again, another award winner. This is Ghost Forest, and again, the cover, so good. This has introduced a term I'm not actually very familiar with called an astronaut family, where a Chinese, I want to make sure I get this right, Hong Kong unnamed narrator is reflecting on her life as her father stayed behind in Hong Kong to work and the rest of the family went to Canada, and it's the story of her figuring out her anger towards her parents and her father especially, talking to her grandparents to understand the full picture a lot more, and it's basically a novel in which the author can explore these ideas. And then the last one, again, that baby kind of pink I was talking to you about, this is The New Animals by Pip Adam, and this is also another Kiwi author. Now this book is kind of more about fashion, which is why I was intrigued by it, and it's basically like the two genres of people that are included in here are millennials and Gen Xers. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm finding the idea of aging, age gaps, age groups really fascinating. I don't know if it's because I myself am heading closer to 30 than I was 20. So I'm finding it quite an interesting period to really contemplate everything I've done, but how I've still got so much life left to live. But this in particular, this book is talking about like that in a fashion world in New Zealand. So I think this could either be really good or, quite frankly, really boring. I'm hoping for good, obviously. So that is my pile of books that I picked up because of their pretty covers. Next up, we have straight up graphic novels. We'll start with these two. These are Agatha Christie novels. I have Death on the Nile here, and on here it is And Then There Were None. Two really famous Agatha Christie books which I have not read. And when I read her Murder on the Orient Express. I thought it was good, but I did find it a little bit slow. I don't know if that's just the frame of mind I was in at the time. So when I found that my library had these as graphic novels, I wanted to pick them up straight away. Because I thought it would be a more interesting way to read a mystery. I've never read a mystery graphic novel before, so entranced. That's the wrong word. Enticed. We also have this one called Blue Bloods, which I had never heard of before. But when I opened it up, the art style, oh, like look at that just random page. It just grabbed me. I mean, basically, I'm pretty sure this is just like a paranormal, supernatural vampire kind of story. High schoolers. She turns 16 and she gets blue veins. She blacks out. Bodies start turning up. I mean, I think it's going to be full of cliches. I'm not going to lie. However, I'm still very intrigued and I really want to read it. And then the last one I have here is Lock and Key. I watched the first season of this on, I think it's Netflix, and I found it odd. Not good odd. I found the Netflix show edited badly. I'm trying to figure out and put my finger on what it was I didn't quite like about it. But I know it came from a graphic novel. So when I saw number 1, I decided I would pick this up and give reading it a go. I must say that the artistry style doesn't really seem to emulate the vibes I was getting from the TV series, but that's okay. I am still intrigued to read it. So not heaps of physical graphic novels, but then that's kind of where this bad boy comes in. I just want to quickly let you guys know that on top of all these physical books I also have my tablet, and I am about, I think, 3 volumes away from finishing the manga series, not Ghost in the Shell, Tokyo Ghoul. So I've downloaded those and I'll be reading those as well. I also have started the Dragon Ball Z series and have finished only 2 volumes, but that's something, not Dragon Ball Z, just Dragon Ball, isn't it? The original Dragon Ball. So that's also a series I'm reading through at the moment. And please let me know if you have any other suggestions of manga that I could read. I do have a subscription to Shonen Jump, so yay. I have been talking for about 32 minutes. Hopefully editing me has been able to cut that down a little bit. But basically, if you want to see me reading any of these books in the future, just hit that subscribe button, because I am going to be doing my danged hardest to be vlogging and updating everybody. I mean, basically from now until whenever. If you don't know, I'm moving to Australia in less than a month, so these are the books to help me get through the move, whilst I'm also sharing the move with you guys. But for now I will sign off, because this is getting long and I'm already rambling. So enjoy all the places you're going and reading adventures, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.